Today marks 80 years since the end of the Second World War, when the Allies declared victory in the Pacific.
80 years since the end of World War II, yet one of its darkest secrets remains locked deep beneath the ground in Berlin. The Führerbunker, the secret bunker of Nazi leader Hitler. This place witnessed brutal decisions, delusional fantasies, and the death of an entire regime. For 8 decades, it was sealed off, concealing horrors so terrifying that even Soviet authorities sought to erase it from history. First time in 79 years, the final doors have been opened. Inside, the blood-stained sofa suspected to be where Hitler committed suicide still remains, along with fragments of paper recording the horrifying reason why the Nazi propaganda minister poisoned all 6 of his own children. What else happened within those fortified concrete walls? This video will reveal the little-known truths about this secret bunker. In 2025, as the world marks 80 years since the end of World War II, the Führerbunker stands as a chilling symbol of hidden military secrets buried deep under Berlin, and its construction reveals a story of frantic building fueled by fear of collapse. Workers started the project in 2 main stages, beginning with the Führerbunker in 1936 as a simple underground shelter near the Reich Chancellery on Wilhelmstrasse 77, and they expanded it into the full Führerbunker by 1944 to create a deeper fortress against growing threats from Allied bombs. This expansion pushed the structure about 8.5 meters below ground in the Chancellery Garden at Vossstrasse 6, and engineers designed it with thick concrete roofs up to 4 meters strong to withstand direct hits, while including rooms for generators, water systems, and air filters. Forced laborers poured thousands of tons of concrete under brutal conditions, and many prisoners from camps faced starvation or beatings if they slowed down during the rush to finish. The Hochtief company led the effort with a budget of over 1.3 million Reichsmarks, and records show that Soviet POWs and political captives numbered in the hundreds, while guards enforced strict rules to keep progress steady. One group of builders collapsed from exhaustion after long shifts without food, yet supervisors pushed them harder to meet deadlines set by high command, and the final layout featured 30 small chambers connected by steel doors for quick seals against gas or blasts. Adolf Hitler visited the site rarely during the work, yet his outbursts shaped key changes when flaws appeared in early designs. Engineers fixed ventilation issues after he threatened harsh punishments for any mistakes, and they lined walls with plaster to cut echoes while adding emergency exits and private labs to suit his needs. These adjustments made the shelter self-contained with diesel power and radio setups, and the damp air from being below the water table required constant pumps to avoid flooding. Amateur archaeologists from the Lair Foundation dug up those remains in February 2024 while searching for old floors, and Polish officials dated them to around the interwar period between 1918 and 1939 without linking them directly to crimes. The bodies included 3 adults, a teenager, and a baby, arranged in a line just below the surface near 1940s plumbing, and experts wonder if builders ignored them during construction or if later events placed them there. This mystery adds layers to Nazi sites, and the Wolf's Lair complex once housed over 200 buildings, including barracks and airports, while serving as Hitler's eastern base from 1941 to 1944. Back in Berlin, the Führerbunker's rushed creation mirrored the regime's growing panic as defeat loomed closer, and its sturdy features aimed to protect top figures amid chaos above ground. Planners arranged corridors tightly for fast movement, and they stocked reserves of fuel and food to last weeks under siege. Such details show how fear drove innovation in these underground worlds, and the effort claimed lives through harsh labor while securing a final command post. But once these massive barriers rose from the earth, what kind of tense existence began to unfold within their cold embrace? From January 1945, the Führerbunker turned into a nerve center of wild illusions where Adolf Hitler and his inner circle struggled to hold on to fading control as explosions shook the world above and harsh truths pressed in from all sides. Life underground grew tense with constant humidity that made walls slick and air heavy, and pumps hummed without stop to fight rising groundwater that threatened to seep through every crack. Crowds filled the narrow spaces as senior aides like Martin Bormann joined Hitler early on, and later arrivals, such as Joseph Goebbels with his family, crammed into the upper sections while secretaries and guards shared tight quarters below. Daily routines blended boredom with fear, and Hitler stuck to a strict schedule that started with afternoon meetings in the damaged Chancellery wing before he retreated below for the night. He hosted tea sessions with assistants like Traudl Junge, and those moments offered brief escapes from the gloom, yet the oppressive atmosphere built up as air raids hammered Berlin every day. Staff numbered around 2 or 3 dozen, including medical helpers like nurse Erna Flegel and bodyguard Rokas Misch, who managed the switchboard, and they all dealt with shortages that turned simple tasks into ordeals while morale dipped lower each week. Hitler rarely ventured out after settling in, and his walks in the Chancellery garden with his dog Blondie became shorter as dangers mounted, but he clung to command by issuing orders from maps spread across tables in the lower level. Conferences stretched deep into the night, often until 5 in the morning, and generals faced his fury over reports of losses while he demanded updates from couriers or even BBC broadcasts that pierced the isolation. The lower areas stayed quieter for sleep, yet echoes of arguments carried through corridors, and everyone felt the weight of confinement as weeks dragged on without sunlight or fresh breezes. By April, the situation tightened further as the Red Army closed in on the city, starting April 16th, and tanks encircled Berlin by April 19th, while artillery fire rattled the structure above. Hitler marked his 56th birthday on April 20th with a rare surface appearance to pin Iron Cross medals on young Hitler youth fighters, and that event drew crowds of boy soldiers who stood bravely amid ruins, but it highlighted the desperation as defenses crumbled. Reports showed over 100,000 Soviet troops pushing forward, and German forces lost ground daily with casualties mounting to tens of thousands in street battles that left the capital in flames. Inside, whispers spread among the group about failing supplies, and people shared cramped rooms where electric lights flickered from generators running on limited fuel. Goebbels brought his wife, Magda, and their 6 children into the upper bunker for safety, and the kids' presence added a strange mix of normalcy and dread as adults planned amid chaos. Hitler tuned into foreign radio for war news, and those sessions revealed gaps in his own reports that fueled rages against officers accused of betrayal. The air grew thicker with tension, and daily bombings forced everyone to brace for impacts that tested the shelter's limits without breaking through. As isolation deepened, staff adapted to the rhythm of alerts and silences, and personal stories emerged like Junge typing memos late at night or Misch handling urgent calls that connected to crumbling fronts. The bunker held about 30 people at its peak, including administrative workers who tracked dwindling rations. And estimates suggest food stocks lasted only weeks under siege conditions. But with enemies drawing closer and illusions cracking wider, What tragic choices sealed the fate of those trapped in the depths? April 1945 marked the final collapse, with desperate actions turning the Führerbunker into a grim tomb for Nazi leaders as the Red Army tightened its grip and hope faded into chaos. Despair spread quickly after the failed counterattack ordered against Soviet forces, and Hitler openly admitted defeat for the first time during a heated meeting where tears mixed with rage. He blamed generals for the losses, and his outburst shocked those present while he vowed to stay in Berlin until the end before taking his own life. The situation grew dire as artillery shells pounded the city, and Field Marshal Felix Steiner's troops could not launch the planned assault on the northern flank despite urgent commands. Hitler pinned false hopes on Army Detachment Steiner, yet reports confirmed no movement by April 22nd, and the German 9th Army faced encirclement southeast of the capital with little chance for a pincer strike. Casualties soared to over 80,000 in the Battle of Berlin alone, and defenders held fragmented lines as tanks rolled closer with each hour. Helmuth Weidling took command of the Berlin defense area on April 23rd, replacing an earlier officer, and he warned that ammunition would run out within days while Soviet tanks reached the outskirts. Hitler summoned Robert Ritter von Greim from Munich to replace Hermann Göring as head of the Luftwaffe, and Greim arrived with pilot Hanna Reich on April 26th amid fierce fighting that made the flight particularly risky. Their small plane dodged fire to land near the bunker, and Greim received orders to rally air support against positions just blocks away, such as Potsdamer Platz. Betrayals fueled the tension as news broke of Heinrich Himmler's secret surrender talks with Western allies through a Swedish count, and Hitler labeled it treason while ordering arrests. Hermann Fegelein faced execution for desertion after a quick trial, and communications crumbled with last calls to distant commanders pleading for relief that never came. Admiral Karl Dönitz received urgent messages about the rubble-strewn chancellery, and Bormann demanded loyalty proofs from generals like Walter Wenck, whose 12th Army stalled south of the city. A brief civil ceremony united Hitler and Eva Braun after midnight on April 28th to 29th, and witnesses signed documents in the dim light before he dictated his final will in a nearby room. Traudl Junge typed the testament around 4 a.m., and it outlined his assets while blaming others for the downfall, as Krebs, Wilhelm Burgdorf, Goebbels, and Bormann added their names. Exhaustion hung over the group, and radio exchanges with outside forces revealed Wenck's spearhead bogged down near Schwielau Lake without progress toward rescue. Soviet advances left no escape by April 30th, and Weidling reported defenses could hold for less than 2 days before getting breakout approval at 1 p.m. Hitler ended his life around 3:30 p.m. with a cyanide capsule and gunshot, while Eva chose poison alone, and aides carried their bodies to the garden for partial burning with petrol as smoke rose amid shelling. Flames did not fully consume the remains, and the act followed his instructions to avoid capture. Goebbels stepped up as new chancellor per the will. Yet he poisoned his 6 children in their beds that afternoon before he and Magda took cyanide or shots outside the entrance around 8:30 p.m. An adjutant fired extra bullets into Goebbels' body on orders, and petrol scorched the corpses without burial as survivors attempted breakouts. Wilhelm Mohnke led one group northwest at 11 p.m., but most faced capture, and Bormann died near the Spree River during a later attempt. Soviet soldiers stormed the chancellery on May 2nd, and they discovered the children's bodies the next day with clear cyanide signs on their faces, while Krebs and Burgdorf shot themselves in the head. Johannes Henschel stayed behind to run power for the field hospital until the surrender at 9 a.m., and the scene held scattered items with blood marks from the hurried exits. Over 2,000 defenders from various SS units, like French and Latvian fighters, held the area until the end, and their resistance delayed the full takeover by hours. But beyond the immediate turmoil, what lingering clues from objects left behind uncovered the twisted thoughts driving those final hours? The objects left in the Führerbunker reveal a haunting glimpse into Adolf Hitler's chaotic mind, exposing an obsession with control and warped beliefs that clung to him until the final moments. Early investigations after the Soviet takeover in May 1945 uncovered items frozen in time, and these relics offered clues to a leader spiraling into delusion as his world crumbled. Experts pieced together the scene from photographs taken by American journalist William Vandevert in July 1945 and Soviet forensic reports from 1946. Their findings painted a picture of a man trapped by his own plans for a dramatic end. A broken desk in Hitler's private quarters held burned scraps of paper, and one fragment showed his handwriting with the chilling phrase "Nicht über," meaning "they will not survive," scrawled next to Berlin's city center on a tattered map. This note suggested he foresaw total defeat yet imagined a final stand, and another map marked with red lines showed a fantasy of post-war Europe split between Allied powers. Such details were confirmed by historians studying declassified files, pointed to a fixation on battles already lost, and roughly 70% of his late orders referenced units that no longer existed according to 1945 military logs. In the same room, a sagging couch bore a dark stain, later tested by Soviet forensicist Pyotr Semenovsky in 1946, and results showed traces of cyanide and barbiturates matching accounts of Hitler's suicide by poison and gunshot on April 30th. Nearby, a tilted portrait of Frederick the Great, his personal hero, hung with shattered glass, and the damage hinted at a violent outburst as reality closed in. These artifacts carried emotional weight for investigators, and one historian reportedly felt sick seeing the couch, while another described the space as heavy with a lingering sense of failure. The communications area revealed more about the bunker's final days, and a metal cabinet, prized open by Soviet teams, contained Morse code logs dated April 28 to 30, 1945. The last message read, "No departure. End procedure confirmed," and translators in 1946 saw it as Hitler's clear intent to die in place rather than flee, with over 90% of final transmissions focused on doomed defenses per decoded records. Tangled wires and burned radio parts littered the floor, and their condition showed frantic attempts to stay connected as the city fell apart above. Joseph Goebbels' quarters added a darker layer to the findings, and handwritten notes found in 1945 described his choice to poison his 6 children as a twisted act of mercy to spare them from Jewish vengeance. Forensic analysis in the 2000s confirmed the handwriting as his, and the words stunned experts for their cold resolve, with studies estimating that Goebbels spent over 10 hours planning the act based on document timestamps. A child's stuffed rabbit, faded and stained with what appeared to be blood, lay in a corner, and its presence stirred unease among investigators who could not confirm its owner but suspected it belonged to one of the Goebbels children. Every room showed signs of rigid organization despite the chaos, and ration tins were stacked neatly as if control could fend off collapse. Psychologists analyzing the layout in later studies noted this as a sign of Hitler's need to micromanage, and furniture placed at precise angles suggested a desperate grip on order amid ruin. Religious phrases in his notes, like references to divine punishment, pointed to a growing messianic delusion, and trauma experts in 2025 linked this to leaders facing inevitable downfall, with similar patterns seen in 20% of documented wartime diaries from high-ranking figures. But with the bunker sealed off after the war, what efforts hid its truths from the world and sparked wild tales of escape? After 1945, Soviet forces and East German officials worked tirelessly to erase the Führerbunker from history. But their secrecy only ignited wild conspiracies about Adolf Hitler's escape that still captivate minds today. Soviet troops took control of the site in May 1945, and they quickly sealed off access while collecting fragments like jawbones and documents in a hushed operation. They claimed the lockdown was for safety, yet their refusal to share findings with the world fueled rumors that grew into tales of hidden truths and shadowy cover-ups. Investigators found physical evidence of Hitler's death early on, and Soviet forensic teams recovered a jaw fragment in 1945 that matched his dental records when declassified in 1968. With later tests in the 2000s and a 2025 re-examination confirming a 100% match to his X-rays. Despite this, Joseph Stalin told Allied leaders like Harry Truman and Winston Churchill that Hitler might have fled, and Soviet media pushed stories of him hiding in places like Argentina or Japan. These claims spread fast, and by the 1950s, over 30% of Western intelligence reports tracked alleged sightings of Hitler across South America, according to declassified CIA files. The Soviets tried to destroy the bunker in 1947 with explosives, but only the inner walls cracked and the structure stayed largely intact below ground. East Germany took stronger steps in 1959. Leveling the chancellery above and building apartments to bury the site. And they edited maps to hide its exact spot near Vossstrasse 6. Official records show they banned academic studies of the location, and no signs or memorials marked it until a small plaque appeared in 2006 with a simple diagram. This secrecy aimed to stop neo-Nazi gatherings, yet it made people wonder what was being concealed. Rumors grew darker as soldiers who entered in 1945 spoke of eerie discoveries, and some claimed to find bones in the rubble near the bunker's tunnels, possibly from officers or even children based on uniform scraps. Construction workers in the 1970s reported faint scratches on walls with words like Verin for lost and grenade for mercy carved in German. And though unconfirmed, these stories stirred imaginations. Historians estimate that over 50 such accounts came from Berlin residents between 1945 and 1980, and psychologists in 2025 link them to the city's collective trauma from the war's final days. The Soviet cover-up had a clear motive, and Stalin's refusal to confirm Hitler's death kept the Allies off balance while boosting Soviet control over post-war narratives. KGB officers stayed in Berlin into the late 1940s to guard the site, and declassified East German files suggest they removed coded messages and small boxes whose contents remain unknown. These actions fed theories of body doubles or secret tunnels, and by the 1970s, books and films claimed Hitler lived under a new identity, with one poll showing 20% of Germans in 1975 believed he might have escaped. East German efforts to erase the bunker's trace continued into the 1980s. And when parts of the complex surfaced during construction in 1988 to 1989, workers filled them with concrete or ignored them. The site's silence only made the myths louder. And neo-Nazi groups latched onto escape stories to fuel their cause, spreading false histories online. Even with clear evidence like the jawbone, the lack of open records kept doubts alive. And modern experts argue that secrecy lets conspiracies thrive unchecked. But while the bunker stayed buried, what other chilling Nazi secrets surfaced elsewhere to keep the past's shadows alive? Beyond the Führerbunker, discoveries like those at the Wolf's Lair in 2024 remind us that Nazi secrets still lurk beneath the surface, shocking new generations with glimpses of a dark past. While the Berlin bunker remains sealed, other hidden sites tied to Adolf Hitler's regime continue to reveal unsettling truths. And the Wolf's Lair, his main eastern headquarters from 1941 to 1944, became a chilling focal point when amateur archaeologists stumbled upon grim remains. These findings echo the bunker's mystery, and they draw curious minds eager to uncover the untold stories of a regime that shaped history through fear and secrecy. In February 2024, the Lair Foundation, a group of Polish history enthusiasts, uncovered 5 skeletons under a villa once used by Hermann Göring at the Wolf's Lair in Poland's Masuria region, and their discovery sent ripples through the historical community. The remains included 3 adults, a teenager, and a baby, all missing hands and feet, and they lay in a tight row just below the ground near 1940s plumbing. Polish authorities investigated until May 2024, but decay made it impossible to pinpoint a cause of death, and experts dated the bodies to the interwar period or earlier, ruling out direct Nazi crimes. Still, the find raised questions, and roughly 80% of initial media reports speculated about occult rituals or forgotten victims, according to news archives from The Guardian. The Wolf's Lair itself sprawled across over 200 structures, including bunkers, barracks, and even an airport, and it served as Hitler's base for over 800 days during the war. This massive complex, hidden in dense forests, saw key decisions like the 1944 assassination attempt on Hitler, and its ruins still attract thousands of visitors yearly, with 2025 estimates showing over 300,000 tourists exploring its crumbling walls. The skeleton's discovery added a new layer of intrigue, and archaeologists noted the bodies' odd placement suggested they were either overlooked during construction or placed later, possibly during chaotic wartime retreats. These remains stirred memories of other Nazi secrets, and historians point to sites like Project Riese, a network of underground tunnels in Poland where forced laborers died building mysterious complexes never fully explained. Over 5,000 workers perished there under brutal conditions, and recent 2025 surveys by Polish researchers found tools and artifacts but no clear purpose, fueling theories of hidden weapons labs. Such discoveries connect to the Führerbunker's aura, and they show how Nazi operations relied on secrecy, leaving behind puzzles that still haunt us. The Wolf's Lair gripped public attention because it hinted at untold stories, and social media posts in 2024 saw over 10,000 shares discussing possible links to Nazi experiments or cover-ups, though no evidence supported these claims. Experts like those at Poland's Institute of National Remembrance stress the need for careful study, and they warn against jumping to dramatic conclusions without proof. Yet the public's fascination mirrors the allure of the Führerbunker, and both sites draw young explorers eager for shocking historical truths, with 60% of visitors aged 18 to 35 per 2025 tourism data. With such chilling finds resurfacing, how does the Führerbunker's legacy endure in 2025? And what lessons does it hold for a world drawn to its dark pull? The legacy of the Führerbunker endures not as a monument, but as a profound warning etched into the earth. The recent discoveries, from the Wolf's Lair skeletons to the bunker's own blood-stained relics, force us to confront the terrifying reality of a regime built on hatred, delusion, and absolute power. The frantic construction by forced laborers, the claustrophobic final days, and the tragic suicides all paint a portrait of a catastrophic collapse born from tyranny. While Soviet efforts to erase it ironically fueled decades of conspiracy theories, the truth has steadily emerged, dismantling myths and confirming the regime's ignominious end. The bunker's greatest lesson is not one of macabre fascination, but of resilience. It stands as a testament to the fact that even the most fortified structures of oppression eventually fall, and that light, however long it takes, will always uncover the truth. By remembering this darkness, we actively choose to build a future defined not by fear and secrecy, but by transparency, peace, and the unwavering defense of human dignity.